And I caught you laughing. I don't know why, but uh, somehow
So
you always find it funny when I do the countdown for
I
us to
know
start. You always it cracks you up.
it always cracks me up. I do not know why.
Well, it used to be because I would count it on my fingers, and I did the weird. I always do three this way, which makes you laugh.
Yeah. I
But
think it's an association now. Like as soon as I hear you starting to count down, I start laughing.
okay, so that's fine. Well, welcome to another episode of Ask Eddie and Ann. This is Eddie Muller, joined by my fabulous colleague in the Film Noir Foundation, Ann Hawkins, Director of Communication for the FNF. I don't see any cats in the picture right at the moment.
No, it's the afternoon, so they may not stir. One of them's on the couch, but out of sight.
I see. That cat's out of sight. Um, and you won't be seeing any of, well, my one remaining feline will certainly not be joining us because I'm upstairs in my office and she will not venture upstairs any longer. So let's just get that out of the way to start with. Okay.
Okay.
So, Anne, I have not seen you in a while since I was up in Seattle for the Noir City Festival in Seattle, which ended up being quite successful. I want to just give a quick shout out to our colleagues, Vince and Rosemary Keenan, who took over the hosting duties for me after I left at the end of opening weekend. But by all reports, a wonderful time was had by all. And it was really good to be back in the swing of things with two festivals under our belt now
Yeah.
in 2023. And more
Yeah.
to come.
And more to come. Yeah. And just to remind everybody that in our newsletter, on our Facebook page, on our social media accounts, we do post which festivals we have confirmation on, just so people know that, so they can always check there to see any new festival news.
Right. Yes, I noticed that, you know, that's usually where we start in these things is by saying these are the festivals that are coming up. I'm glad we're not doing it this time. Let's just direct people to the Noir City website or the Film Noir Foundation website, because that's where you can see the latest info on what is coming up. So that's fantastic. And you know, there'll be more news coming shortly. I do want to start off by, I know that we had promised we were going to talk about a couple of things
Mm-hmm.
in previous episodes that we ran out of time to discuss. So I have to share a couple of funny recent stories because I've been really, everybody is just freaking out these days because of the tales of how bad the movie business is. There's no attendance at movie theaters. And so I felt kind of, you know, my festival, our festival. I mean, I'm thrilled to say, you know, it packs these venues.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful at the Grand Lake in Oakland. It was wonderful to see, uh, you know, 75-year-old black and white noir films outdrawing Avatar and Plane and new releases, which I hear Plane is really good. So I'm not being critical about these
Right.
films. I'm just saying that they were drawing, you know, a dozen people at the most for these shows while we were drawing 600. So I
Yeah.
was very, very pleased about that. But when people ask, like, why is it so weird to go to the movies? I have to tell you, I've had, I went to see this film. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Infinity Pool.
No, I haven't seen it yet. I really want to see it.
Okay, I know it's a horror film, so I
Yeah.
know that it's right up your alley. It's by Brandon Cronenberg, David Cronenberg's son. And I'm not going to really talk about the movie at this point because you haven't seen it. But I do want to talk quickly about the experience of going to see this movie and why going to the movies these days is such an unusual challenge. So I realized I was at home working and I had some time and I said, I'm just going to go. I'm going to go to the movies. Damn, this is going to be great, you know. So I drove over to this multiplex where it was showing, and I won't bog down in details just about how difficult everything is these days.
Yeah.
Like just parking the car. Where do you go to pay for the parking? How do you do it? You have to have an app on your phone to do the parking and all this nonsense.
Yeah.
And then I go up to the theater. It was a 6:10 show.
Yeah.
Okay, for this movie, 6:10. So nobody's going to be there anyway, right?
Yeah.
But when I say to the guy, one ticket, 6:10 show of Infinity Pool, the guy spins the big monitor around and says, "Where would you like to sit?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, are the green seats occupied or unoccupied?" And he goes, "Those are the unoccupied seats." And I said, "Well, that would be the entire theater." Okay, so I'm a little confused at why I'm picking a seat in a completely empty theater, why I have to do this, right? So I pick my seat, F7.
Yeah.
And right in front, just behind the section for the people in their wheelchairs. And it's like, okay, good to go. But I'm early, right? So I say to the guy, but the theater is open now, right? There's no show still in there. So I of course, I don't know about you, Ann, but whenever I go to the movies, I always bring a book.
Yeah.
Always bring a book because if you get there a little early, you want to just relax, sit there, read your book in the theater. So the guy says, "Yeah, of course the theater is open." So I go in. It is pitch black.
Yeah.
It's pitch black in the theater. There aren't even lights to show you where the aisles are and stuff. So it's like useless. I cannot sit in the theater. So I have to sit in the lobby to read my book.
Yeah.
But the lobby, for some incredible reason, is playing the news, TV news, like full blast.
Oh, wow.
In the lobby of the theater. And it's like, okay, what don't these people understand about going to the movies, that you're trying to leave all that behind? If I wanted to hear the news, I'd be home watching it, right? Don't want the news. No. I just want to go to the movies. But no. So 20 minutes of this nonsense in the lobby. And then when I finally go in, they don't turn the lights up. So I have to basically grope my way through the darkness. And I realize when my eyes adjust that there is no one in the theater.
Yeah.
It's completely empty. And then the commercials start.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I can't read my book. I'm subjected to all these commercials, which I'm not joking. It was like 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Of these commercials. And then the coming attractions start. Good Lord. I mean, incredible. I mean, I don't want it to sound like I never go to the movies like this. I'm just realizing this for the first time. But quite honestly, I hadn't been to a film in a while at a multiplex.
Yeah.
So when the coming attractions, we won't talk about how it's pointless to go see the movie after you've seen these new coming attractions because the entire movie is given away in 5 minutes. It's just like the Cliff Notes version of the movie. And it's like, good, don't have to see that now. And then the movie is about to start and a guy comes in and he actually comes into my row and climbs over me to get to his seat. There are no other people in the movie theater. Right. And we kind of laughed about this because I'm like, and I actually said to him, like, seriously, man? Like, he goes, well, that's the seat I bought. And I'm like, are we lemmings? Like we can't just sit wherever the hell we want to sit. It's like, we got to go to the numbered seat. All right. Then, no joke, Ann, 3 or 4 minutes later, 3 more people come in.
Yeah.
They sit right next to me.
Was everybody lonely?
I don't, in a completely empty theater. It was like, it was incredible. And then, of course, if anybody who's watching us right now has seen Infinity Pool, you know that this is not a comfortable experience. Yeah. This is not a movie that you want to share with strangers. It's like going to a porn theater in Times Square or something. It's like, leave me alone. I just want to be by myself. I don't know. But it was just bizarre. And it added a whole other weird level to the experience, that you actually were forced to kind of experience it with strangers.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it was a bad thing, but I just couldn't believe this whole. And now, of course, these theaters are going to start using the reserved seating to make you pay,
Yeah.
on different price levels for the good seat. And my thing is, like, who follows these instructions? I mean, why in the world would anybody feel that they are obligated to sit next to you in a movie theater because you picked the seat? And when the thing turned around and they looked at it, did they not see that someone had purchased F7?
Yeah.
Don't buy F6.
Yeah.
I mean, buy F3 or something, but
Or maybe the rows behind you.
well, somebody was behind me as well. There were 5 people in the movie theater, 5 people, and we were all sitting within one seat of each other in a 200-seat auditorium. It was unreal. Anyway, we'll talk about Infinity Pool some other time. Anyway.
Sorry, no, I just always go to, like, I go to the I always go to the Cinemark downtown, in the mall. And it's great because I go after work. So usually it's like one time I went to a 4 because, I try not to do that. Like, usually they're 5 or 5:30. And, it's great because I have like a Cinemark membership. So I just pay $10 a month and get a ticket that way. So, and I pick out my seat ahead of time. I can see who's in the theater. If there's anybody else when I pick my seat and stuff. So it's great. And but the last time I went to see I guess it's called Knock at the Cabin Door.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's M. Night Shyamalan, so sort of like this really intense story, and you're wondering what's going to happen. And like the film stopped and the lights came up, and it wound up they were having to evacuate the theater because the whole mall was being evacuated. And it was just like, but then the next week I couldn't go, so I still haven't seen the rest of the film. So I'm gonna have to like stream it when it comes on so I can find out what. And the thing was, it was getting like really tense. It's one of those things that you're not sure if these people are crazy or if this apocalyptic thing is really happening. So it was one of those. It was finally kind of gearing up to the big climax, and then it was just like, get out,
evacuate the theater. Modern life.
Oh my God.
The funniest, well, it's not funny, but my favorite story of that kind is years ago. You've seen the movie The Vanishing?
I have not seen The Vanishing, but I know what it's about.
Okay, and
I only saw the crappy American remake. I haven't seen the original.
Well, then but they changed the ending.
Yeah,
of the crappy American remake, but which amazingly,
the original one.
Okay, and amazingly, the film was made by the same guy.
Yeah,
made both versions, but he made a good one and a crappy one. And so my friend Bob goes to see this movie at the Clay Theater in San Francisco, and just like what happened to you, there's something happens, like the film breaks or there's some emergency in the theater, and everybody has to leave like 15 minutes from the end of the film. If people know this movie, it's like it's about a guy trying to figure out what happened to his wife, who disappeared at a roadside convenience store. His wife disappears, and then he's taunted by this guy who claims to know what happened to her, and it goes on for years. And he baits the guy into tracking him down and to find out what happened to his wife. And then just as it's getting to the point where you're going to find out what happened, he has to leave the theater. And so it's like 2 weeks before he can go back and see the movie again. And he explains to the people, I only want to come in and watch the last 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And he had his ticket from when, he goes, remember on this date? And they're like, you sure you want to do this? He goes, yeah, okay. And so he goes in, and watches the end of the movie and is completely devastated. Like, oh my God, I can't, because if you know the movie, you know,
Yeah.
it is one of the jaw-dropping endings on a film of all time.
Yeah.
But it was so funny that he had to wait, talk about drawing it out. He had to wait 2 weeks to get to that ending. Anyway.
Yeah, I know. We went like opening day of the X-Files movie, me and my husband at the time and my sister. And it was like a big deal, right? You've been waiting and waiting for the movie, and we went in, and they started showing the film, and this is the most hilarious part, was right where the film broke, and we all had to leave because the film broke. Was a scene where they're literally stopped at a crossroads and decide whether or not they want to go right or left. That's when the film broke. It was hilarious. Like, for a minute, I really thought it was just, you know what I mean? Or it's like, no, that really happened.
And I feel bad that we're running down the movie going experience here. So
Yes,
I want to
go to the movies.
I want to remind people that at Noir City you get grade A projection, no commercials, bonus entertainment. We had singers and the fabulous Evie Lavelle doing her burlesque routine. We give you a full-on show like it would have been back in the 1940s, not one of these multiplex lame excuses for a night at the movies. So there.
And I would recommend to people, though, because like I said, I have a really great experience at the Cinemark every time. Like, I love that theater. And so you can also find your cinema, but I always get there right at showtime, right? Because like I'm coming from work, so I plan it out. I have enough time to grab my milk duds and hot dog, get into the theater, and usually that's right when the ads are ending, and then it's just into the previews. So
right. I mean, that's the thing. People now, well, I might as well admit, I did go recently, a few days ago, to see the new Marlowe
yes,
movie, which was another strange, theatrical experience. But I'm sorry to report that it was really bad.
oh, okay. Yeah, something came up at the last minute, so I couldn't go when I had tickets for it. So
Yeah,
now I'm kind of glad.
well,
Sure.
I mean, I don't try to tell people that they should or shouldn't see a movie, or everybody should decide for themselves. But it always it hurts a little bit when a film that's right in my wheelhouse ends up being so disappointing, as this was for so many reasons. But I will only say that the script is just terrible. I didn't like the book. I didn't like the Benjamin Black / John Banville book that it's based on. I just thought it wasn't. I mean, calling it a pastiche of Raymond Chandler is I would have preferred a pastiche of Raymond Chandler.
Yeah.
This was just like a really dull, fifth generation carbon copy that just didn't ever come to life. And Liam Neeson is totally wrong for the part.
Yeah.
And when you think about Raymond Chandler, the number one thing is his language and his ability to describe scenes, and just the color and the momentum of the detective meeting all these unusual people, and just the thrill of the quest is a big part of what detective fiction is all about. And of course, Chandler is also famous for his wit, right? And there's no wit in this movie at all. It is a witless movie.
Yeah.
I mean, there isn't one memorable line of dialogue. There's not one memorable characterization. And it kind of blew my mind when I saw some dude on social media harping on how people were saying Neeson was miscast because he alleged that in the book that Banville wrote, that Marlowe was an older man. He was closer to Neeson's real age than people realized, which is not true.
Yeah.
I mean, the story's set in the late 1930s, and Marlowe would have been a relatively young man. He would have been like 35 years old or something then. It was not in any way, shape, or form was Liam Neeson correct for this part. The age had nothing to do with it. It was that he was just not Marlowe.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's and I feel badly about it because Neil Jordan's a good filmmaker. I think
Yeah.
Mona Lisa is a neo noir masterpiece, but I just feel like I was forgetting this movie as I was watching it.
Hmm.
It's a horrible thing to say, but yeah, not good. So if anybody has seen it and is watching us, they can take exception to that and argue why the movie has value, but I certainly didn't see it.
What did you think of Pearl?
Yeah, Pearl. I know we promised we would talk about
Talk
that.
about it. Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I
Good.
enjoyed it, and this Mia Goth is she is really carving out a unique niche for herself in the movie business these days. I have a great deal of admiration for what she's doing because she's not only acting, she's now writing
Hmm.
her own scripts. She's in Infinity Pool as well.
Yes.
She's sort of a genuine femme fatale in
Yeah.
Infinity Pool, but of the horror movie variety.
Yeah.
And and now she's going to do Maxine,
Hmm.
Triple X Maxine,
Yeah.
which is a continuation of the same thing. So, with I guess Ty West is
Ty
also
West is
making
right.
that film. Yeah. So I mean, to me, it's really clever that she's doing these various characters, kind of permutations of not the same character because Maxine is not Pearl, obviously,
Yeah.
but it's just interesting. She has a lot of talent. She's very intense on
Hmm.
screen, very intense, and it's funny. I'm writing a script. This is what I'm doing now. I'm on hiatus right now from the TCM stuff
Yeah.
because we're recording this in March, and I'm not on in March or April, but it's people say enjoy your vacation as though I'm having a vacation.
Well, and also you're gonna have to do the TCM festival in April, and they run you ragged. So.
Of course, but I'm in the middle of writing 22 new scripts for
Right.
Noir Alley, and then I'll be recording those later this month.
Yeah.
So it's not like a vacation. But one of the scripts I'm writing is for the movie Deep Valley. Have you ever seen Deep Valley
I haven't
with
seen Deep Valley.
Ida Lupino and Dane Clark? It's funny because the movie reminds me of Pearl.
Yeah.
Because Ida Lupino plays a young girl who is like trapped
Yeah.
in a house up in the mountains with her parents, and she can't escape from them, and she just dreams of life beyond the house. And then she ends up, Dane Clark plays a guy who escapes from a prison chain gang who she falls in love with, and it becomes this impossible romantic Romeo and Juliet story in the woods. And it reminded me a lot of Pearl, which I had just seen. It's like, wow, this is interesting because if Deep Valley were a horror movie,
right,
it would have been a lot like that. So anyway, it was good. It's very, very well done. So I can see if you're into genre stuff, it's nice to have them done with so much style and talent
yeah,
as went into making that film.
And I think it's just been a really interesting time in horror the past couple of years. We've just gotten because the thing about horror films is, they're low risk, high reward. I mean, you've got a built-in audience, there's really not that many films where you honestly have a built-in audience where people pretty much go to anything that comes out in that genre. And then, it's just not the financial risk. So people can do a lot of really creative things and Pearl, because that couldn't have been from a major studio. They never would have done it.
Right.
That type of story. And, the acting's all really good. She's fantastic. I think the woman that plays her mother is incredible. Her father's incredible because he's just basically completely paralyzed and is just having to kind of act with his face.
Yeah, that was there are some uncomfortable moments in these films,
Yes.
both in Pearl and in X, which was
Yes.
the predecessor to Pearl, which is good. I mean, uncomfortable moments that are done with a degree of taste. I mean,
Yes.
that's always debatable amongst people. Like, you know, horror movies today are not Val Lewton horror movies, you
No, they
know.
are not.
But but you can tell when they are done with intelligence and with taste, and when they're still horror movies. So they're going to show you shocking, horrible, uncomfortable things,
Yeah.
but you can always tell when the filmmakers have a style and wit. There's wit in Pearl that I wish was in Marlowe.
Yeah. There you go. And I think too with Pearl, I mean, because it's really a character study. I mean, that's the thing is you have this woman who's definitely like you kind of know from the opening that she's kind of sociopathic or psychotic, but you're watching her the pressures around her. And I think one of the interesting things too is like her mother's really strict with her and she has reasons for that, but then when they started to have a confrontation, she says, I know you and I know what you are, and when people find out about that, it's going to be a problem. And you realize that part of the reason why she's so strict and stuff is she knows her daughter's
Yeah.
psychotic and doesn't want that kind of, not just what she'll do to other people, but what will happen to her,
Yeah.
rather than just making her the mother this sort of two-dimensional oppressor. She really does know her daughter. She's
No, and that I'm embarrassed. I can't remember the actress's name right now, but she is fabulous. The woman who plays
her mom.
Pearl's mom is really tremendous in that film.
Yeah.
Okay, Ann, we
Okay.
should answer some questions
We
because
should.
we've just been, I haven't seen you in a while, so we're just rambling here. But I knew we wanted to discuss those things because we'd left them dangling before. Okay.
And this is from Rob, and this is Rob originally sent us like 5 questions, and the 2 of them were very complicated, but these are pretty easy. So I thought I'll put them in so Rob gets all his questions answered. What's up with Christmas holiday? Is Argyle Secrets coming out on Blu-ray? When is Dark City Dames going to be republished?
Okay. All right. What's up with Christmas holiday? The great Robert Siodmak film from 1944. Starring Deanna Durbin and Gene Kelly in a rare villainous role. Universal is not doing anything with it. It's one of those tricky situations where the rights have reverted to the estate of W. Somerset Maugham. Complicated story. And it's just kind of in limbo.
Yeah.
Those rights need to be cleared up somehow. And I think it would be nice if Universal. See, the problem is this is generally what happens, and this is I could almost give a blanket answer for this. As it pertains to other films as well. What ends up happening is the studio owns the film.
Right.
So they have the negative, they have everything on it. And I've shown Christmas Holiday previously, and it's a really, really good print. But once they do not reassert the underlying literary rights to a movie, and since that is based on a story by Maugham, they have to do that in order to do anything further with the film, to screen it theatrically, to put it out on DVD or Blu-ray or any of that stuff, or even broadcast it on TCM. They have to have secured those underlying literary rights, which for whatever reason, they chose not to do when they came up for renewal. So the rights reverted to the estate of Somerset Maugham. And I have absolutely, at this point, because I haven't researched it, at this point, I have no idea who is in charge of that estate or whether they have any interest in the movie versions of stuff. And it's not a blanket thing. Like other Maugham stories are not part of this. It's on a case by case basis. So that's the answer to that. The Argyle Secrets will be coming out on Blu-ray. but we're looking for an appropriate co-feature
Right.
to put it out because it's a very, very short movie, and I don't feel it's appropriate to charge people. We do good packages with these films through Flickr Alley, and I don't feel it's appropriate to charge people full
Right.
ticket price for a movie that's 65 minutes long. So we want to find something to put with it to make it a big package where we can justify the costs involved in doing this. So that will eventually happen. I'm not positive yet what that second feature is going to be. As for Dark City Dames, I do not know when it's going to be republished, only that it will be. My experience so far has been that when I have briefly shopped the book around to publishers, it's got a lot of words.
Yeah, it's not a picture book.
And it's not a picture book. It's not a cocktail book.
Yeah.
And it's not like Dark City where it's more of a literary book than Dark City was. And so at this point, people want something different from me. So if that continues to be the case, I will just end up republishing the book through Blackpool Productions, like I did the Gun Crazy book and Philippe Garnier's book on David Goodis and his Scoundrels and Spitballers. We'll just do it that way because it should be back out there. And I'd love to include an afterword where I talk about, now that all the women are gone, where I can talk about them in a way that I would not have spoken about them when they were alive. Nothing negative, just a more forthright look, because I remove myself from the book, so I'm not in the book, and I'd love to write an afterword where I discuss my relationships with these actresses, which I think people would find very interesting. So that all of these things will happen, at least Argyle Secrets and Dark City Dames. I don't know about Christmas Holiday, but let's keep our fingers crossed. Okay. I guess it's me. Bill from Simsbury, Connecticut. He has seen some landmark Blu-ray editions come out recently, like El Vampiro Negro on Flickr Alley and I, the Jury on Classic Flicks. What can we expect to see next in the near or far future? Okay. I think I mentioned this last time. I'm the last person to ask about this stuff because I really don't keep track of what else is going on except what the Film Noir Foundation is doing. And I kind of just answered that. We will be putting out another Argentine noir called No Abras Nunca Esa Puerta, Never Open That Door, which is based on two Cornell Woolrich stories. And we'll do that soon. But my buddy Sean Axmaker, who writes the bulk of the Noir at Home section in the Noir City magazine, is much more wired in to what's in the pipeline and what's coming out than I am. I mean, I only find out something's coming when one of these companies will contact me and say, do you want to do an audio commentary? And lately I just decline them all because I just don't have time to do this stuff. So I'm not sure what my swan song was. It may have been Alias Nick Beale, may have been the last film that I actually did a commentary for. And I had no idea that Kino was putting it out until Brett Wood called me and said, you want to do the commentary? And because I love that film so much, I said yes. But there are plenty of them that I don't do. So anyway, that's all I got on that one, Bill. Sorry.
Okay, and this one is from Arlene. You can pull it a little closer so I can read it. Why do you think it's so hard to find the unadulterated version of the British Noir Clouded Yellow anywhere in the States? Why hasn't it been given the Blu-ray treatment it deserves? Can you please talk about Janet Green, who wrote this screenplay, Sapphire, Cast a Dark Shadow, Midnight Lace, Victim, and more, and it was produced by a woman too, Betty Box. Also, why are the two versions floating around? Why would the opening scenes at the train station have been cut, or were they lost and found? How, by whom?
Okay, Arlene. Arlene likes the clouded yellow. I don't know the answer to these again. I mean, I'm despite the fact that we put out Blu-rays with our fabulous partners at Flickr Alley, I don't really get far into the DVD world, you know. So, you know, maybe somebody else knows the answer to this. Janet Green is definitely a subject worthy of study and greater appreciation. And Arlene, don't forget that she wrote those with her husband, John McCormack, because they were a husband and wife writing team, and there have been a few of those in the business, right? Francis and Albert Hackett in the States, and now I'm gonna space out and forget, but there are several of them. And yeah, Cast a Dark Shadow. I did talk about Janet Green a bit when we showed Cast a Dark Shadow on Noir Alley last year. And yeah, she was great at writing. She and John McCormack were great at writing thrillers that had social content. And Victim is an absolute classic, like one of the great, just a great movie, you know. And Dirk Bogarde is sensational in that film. And I wish I had shown it on TCM. I know Dave Karger showed it some time ago, and I love that movie, and it has a great backstory to it. And Midnight Lace, that's another one. That's a Doris Day picture, right? Where she is being gaslighted, and yeah, she was good. But I don't know the answers to the questions. I don't know why there are two versions of that film floating around. I mean, one may just be a fly-by-night version that somebody did from incomplete source material, and then it came out again in a complete version that was like properly done. That happens quite a bit. Okay, Rob wants to know: is this the same Rob that was up at the top? Maybe
I don't know. I don't think it's a different Rob.
Okay, are you familiar with the hybrid versions of The Big Sleep that restore scenes deleted from the 1945 version back into the 46 version? Rob thinks the hybrid version is so much better than either of the two separate versions. And then short of that, the 1945 version is actually better than the 46 version. Okay. I am familiar with that. And, just the story behind all of that was when they made the film. The initial cut that played, I guess, on military bases was the first place that it was seen. They realized there wasn't enough Bacall.
Yeah.
And so they went back and just shoehorned in more scenes with Bogart and Bacall so that their banter could sort of carry the day. And in doing so, the film became so long that they decided to take out some of the expository stuff that appeared in the earlier version that made the plot a little more decipherable.
Yeah.
And I just I do, right? There is the hybrid version that Rob is referring to, I think, is where everything was incorporated.
Yeah.
I kind of like the 46 version without the scenes recapping the plot and explaining stuff. I don't really think it's necessary. So I think the version that has all the great Bogart and Bacall stuff with the famous, depends on who's in the saddle, stuff like that is definitely the keeper version of the film.
This is from our friend Michael from Post Falls, Idaho.
Michael is making Post Falls, Idaho famous.
He is. And so this is an interesting question. I was wondering if either of you have seen the original Danish version of The Guilty and what you thought of it. If not, I highly recommend this top thriller executed mainly through phone dialogue. The acting of Jacob Sedergren, The script and the direction are all superb. So, of course, I've seen it.
Good, because I have not. I have not. So
yeah, and when you met, so I kind of, well, one thing that I thought was funny was the day I put these questions together. Earlier that morning, I saw that Guy Ritchie had a new film coming out with Jake Gyllenhaal, and his co-star is Dar Salem, who's a really great Danish actor. And I said to myself, like, what is it with Jake Gyllenhaal and like Danish films? Because he's been 2 remakes, Brothers and this one, and now he's like co-starring with this, pretty popular Danish actor. The Guilty was amazing. It was Ted and I watched it on movie night, and it was one of those things where we were both gripped the entire time. And it is pretty much just him on the phone, right?
now, wait a second. Maybe I think I've seen the Jake Gyllenhaal version of this film.
Right. You see the Jake Gyllenhaal version because you brought it up in the broadcast, which is what Michael kind of said in the rest of his email. And at the time I had seen it, but I felt like I go off on Danish films so much that I didn't say anything that, there's a Danish version. So yeah, you saw the Jake Gyllenhaal version, but yeah, so I don't know, maybe.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
It's at some point, somebody is going to do a collection of, and maybe this will be like a film festival in the future, COVID movies.
Yeah.
That aren't about COVID, but they're movies made during COVID where it was obvious they had to do, they couldn't have big casts and crews and a lot of stuff. So stuff like that, where it's him like in a control room on the phone talking to some woman in her car, and all this stuff, and it's everybody's in isolation. Yeah. It's the Isolation Film Festival,
Yeah, but, and I assume probably that, like I said, that was a good film to remake during COVID because, here's this script. And
what was the Tom Hardy movie where he's on the phone? It's just him on the phone in his car. Is the entire movie?
Oh, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, Tom Hardy did a picture. I know it's not called Cellular. I know that's a different movie entirely. That's I can't remember who's in that, but okay, somebody knows this movie, and I can see them typing it in right now.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Steve, a regular, says, do you or Ann know of any noir that had a UFO in it? Or even a UFO mentioned? This is an interesting question, Steve, because as he points out, there was an explosion of saucer sightings in the mid to late 1940s. It seems to me that any noir trope could easily have incorporated mysterious, shadowy others with potentially nefarious intentions without turning the movie into science fiction. It's funny. I mean, there's no. The answer is I don't know of one, although there must be, because what Steve is insinuating is absolutely correct, that the UFO phenomenon sort of dovetailed with the end of the original noir era.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know that there was any. I mean, obviously, you see its influence in all the science fiction movies from that era, but I don't know of any time it crossed over into just a passing reference or something, or maybe a magazine cover or something like that in a noir film. I mean, the one that it's Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks has so much noir in it. And so much, I don't. It's not just simply UFOs and stuff, but obviously there's an otherworldly dimension to Twin Peaks, and obviously the study of UFOs and stuff was part of the original Twin Peaks storyline, right? Where the military is investigating all of this stuff, and so I mean that's what I think of, but. From the original era, I can't really think of an instance where UFOs are mentioned in what would normally be a noir film.
No.
Do you know of any?
I cannot remember any.
I mean, there are people who want to convince you that Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a film noir, but it's not. It's a science fiction movie that looks like a small town film noir. But I mean, how else do the pod people get here if not through some kind of, you know, vehicle? I don't really
Yeah.
know. I don't know. Maybe they aren't, maybe they are not from another world. Maybe they're, just growing here as
No.
our doppelgangers, which is what gave them all, of course, the idea that it was really a thesis on, communists in the country or whatever,
Yeah.
who knows?
Okay.
Um,
So this is from Doug from Silver Spring. Albert Band's 1958 horror picture, I Bury the Living, starring Richard Boone. Horror or not horror? Or horror noir or not?
have you seen it?
Yeah, I feel like I've seen it, but I can't remember it.
I have not. I have not. I remember every Richard Boone movie I've ever seen. So
Yeah.
I have not seen it yet. So I guess thanks for the homework assignment, Doug. We will check out I Bury the Living and let you know on a future episode what we thought of that film. I will hunt it down. Okay, in early November 2022, TCM showed Jeopardy, starring Barbara Stanwyck, and Criminal Court, starring Tom Conway. Some sources list these films as noir, but are they? Says Ron in Columbus, Indiana. He enjoyed Jeopardy, and this may be sacrilege, but with all that desert and ocean scenery, I kind of wish the film had been shot in color. I That's not sacrilege at all. I think the film probably would have worked better in color. Not that it doesn't work. I mean, I like Jeopardy too.
Yeah.
I don't really. I always throw it in when I'm listing the later noir films of Barbara Stanwyck because I like the film so much and she's so great with Ralph Meeker and their scenes together that I just mention it so that I'm mentioning it, but it's really a suspense picture.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really a film noir, even though if I was going to show it with something, I would show it on a double bill with The Hitchhiker.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Oh yeah.
because
Yeah.
that would be, I mean, what's your thinking about that? I've programmed film festivals now for 20 something years. Is it better to program two films that have something in common or two films that have absolutely nothing in common? So, which is the way they used to do it, right? They'd
Right.
show a suspense picture and a comedy,
Yeah.
But I just love the idea of William Tallman and Ralph Meeker are both escaped convicts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Running around in the barren wasteland of, and then Barbara Stanwyck comes across. I mean, Jeopardy is a tough little movie.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so funny because after Brendan, who's my ex and still my dear friend, saw that film, I swear for the next year he went around saying, "When's the last time you talked to a woman?" He would do it like in a sultry voice. That made such a huge impression on him.
Yeah, she is so good in that film, and of course, I know that people think this is hugely inappropriate now, but the scene, I mean, it's kind of a gross premise for the film,
Yeah.
And if people haven't seen the movie, it's like they're Stanwyck and Barry Sullivan are husband and wife, and they're vacationing with their kid, and the husband gets trapped under this pier with the tide rising, and she has to go get help, and the help ends up being Ralph Meeker, who's an escaped convict. I think that's what he was, right?
Yeah,
and
he's a Skype convict. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the only way he'll help is if basically she surrenders herself to him.
Yeah.
And then Barry Sullivan has to just kind of
deal with it.
He has to go along with it, and but there's that scene where Stanwyck hauls off and belts Ralph Meeker, and then he just hits her with a right cross and just knocks her out. And it's so well done. They
Yeah.
are so good
It is.
and convincing. It's like, did I just see that? Holy cow! Because I totally believe it when Stanwyck calls off and punches somebody in the face. It's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
wow. And then, of course, Meeker just knocks her cold. So
No.
I like that movie, but Ron, don't be embarrassed that it's you think it should be in color. Then you could show it on a double bill with Inferno,
There you go. Oh,
right?
that'd
Which
be a
is
great double bill with Inferno.
oh, now we're talking triple bills. Now
Yeah.
we're into triple bills. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jeopardy would have been a good 3D movie, right? With
Yeah,
the
it would have been
pier and
great.
the
Oh, with the
water and all that
water and
stuff.
stuff.
It
Yeah, it would have been great in 3D.
would have been
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Anyway,
Anyway,
all right.
okay.
Your turn.
My turn. And this is from Bruce. I noticed several movies, Key Largo, for example, The Head Guy. Oh, wait a minute. I noticed in several movies, for example, The Head Guy, Edward G. Robinson gets shaved. Edward G. Robinson just has to get a shave right before they go on the boat.
Oh,
It is usually some minion that shaves the head guy. Plus, they only shave half the face and wipe off the rest. Why do they do this?
That's pretty funny. I know that thing, and it's so funny because, well, they do it because it's a way of, once again, it's a very simple visual way of showing the villain's vanity and power.
Yeah.
Right? You have somebody else shave you, and the vanity is I'm leaving and I have to look good just in case I get shot and I'm dead and they have a picture of me in the paper. I want to look good, right? I don't want to have a 5 o'clock shadow. So that's the obvious reason why they do it. But it is funny how they're always halfway through the shave when something happens and the guy, wipes it off. And then in the next scene, they're never not half shaved.
Yeah.
They're always completely shaved, even though we just saw that you didn't actually finish the job. So, but that is pretty amusing. And I always think like I would love to go to the barber shop and like get a shave.
Oh, it's really weird. I guess Japanese women do that.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah,
I've heard that in fact, I saw was there an episode of Midnight Diner that
there's
had
an episode of Midnight Diner where that happened. So then I looked it up because I was like, what the hell? And evidently it's a thing. Yeah.
Interesting. But
Yeah.
I find it so like my barber, it's just, well, for a long time they didn't do it. Barbers stopped giving straight razor shaves, especially after the AIDS epidemic, because just the possibility of transmitting something through blood was very scary, and so a lot of barbershops just stopped doing it.
Yeah.
And now, of course, so many of these barbershops cater to the hipsters with the massive beards and everything that it's more like a manscaping thing than it is a shaving. And the shave is so expensive.
Yeah.
It's like in my neck of the woods, it costs $60 to get a shave with your haircut. And it's like, holy cow. I think I can shave myself in like 5 minutes at home. I don't, but it is very luxurious to get the hot towel and the shave and all that. I mean, some people aren't comfortable with a straight razor that close to their throat, but those people have seen too many movies.
Whatever happened to shaving a haircut 2 bits?
Yeah, I know. 2 bits. Good luck with that, Okay, here's a question for you, Anne. This one is right in your wheelhouse from Kevin in Braintree, Massachusetts. Braintree County. I'm a big fan of classic radio shows, in particular crime and mystery. My favorite is Broadway is My Beat, followed closely by Johnny Dollar. Do you believe that such shows can be classified as radio noir? Are you a fan? Kevin must be a newbie because I realize that much of noir is visual, but when I listen to Broadway is My Beat, I can easily picture the shadows, wet streets, and Danny Glover wearing the fedora. Would love to know your thoughts. And take it away, since you are the resident radio expert.
Yeah, and I actually literally wrote like a series of articles for Noir City Magazine called Radio Noir. So yes, I
Yes.
believe Radio Noir is a thing. Yeah, very much so. And it's interesting how much, kind of crossover there is too between, the films and the radio shows, because obviously The Whistler was something that was adapted into a series of movies. And so yeah, there's quite a bit. I mean, especially detective based noir. I mean, Johnny Dollar is different because he was an insurance investigator. But there was, yeah, I mean, Jack Webb prior to Dragnet had like two or three kind of locally produced radio series where he played a detective. Even though one of them was extremely satirical, like it was hilarious because it was obviously a send up of the genre. And then, of course, Sam Spade on the radio, which was very different characterization that Howard Duff did until he wound up being named in red channels and he was taken off the show, which people were very upset about that, actually, that he wasn't doing the show anymore because they tried it with another actor. And that had kind of more of a comedic bent as well. And then there's also was Richard Diamond, which was kind of interesting because that was sort of before he did Murder My Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
He actually did that. And then that was interesting too, because it was the same thing where the first, because it was actually two series before so one was sort of more comedic, and then they went to where it was kind of interesting too, because he would always get like knocked out and then he would talk to this person that he only saw when he was knocked out. It was kind of surrealistic and very funny. And then I think then I can't remember the name of that series, but then it became Richard. He did a more serious detective on the radio too. So yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stuff. I mean, and also Suspense had a lot of noir. I mean, they did a lot of Cornell Woolrich stories.
Mm-hmm.
And
Aren't you a little surprised that with the, huge popularity of podcasts these days, that there aren't more fictional podcasts where they're doing dramatizations of stories? I mean, our mutual friend Amy Pavey does
yes,
one that's a horror, kind of a horror, but has a tinge of noir, called 12 Chimes at Midnight,
yeah.
that she puts together, that you can listen to as a podcast. And I'm surprised that, given that true crime podcasts are everything now, like why they aren't doing more fictional
Yeah,
stuff.
I
Like
know.
it'd be so easy to take, like you just pointed out, Cornell Woolrich, like short stories, not necessarily Woolrich stories, but any kind of short story that can be dramatized uh, as a podcast. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think it's just because we've just really gotten past the idea of radio drama for some reason here. And, it's kind of interesting too, because I watched a Danish series called Equinox. It's out on Netflix, which is really good, which was, but that evidently was based on a podcast, and which is a fictional story. So I guess maybe they're doing it in some places, but yeah, I don't know, because it just seems like it would be a natural thing, but maybe people don't want to do fiction that way. I don't know. I mean, the theater of the imagination is really great, especially like,
Yes, it's wonderful. Sometimes just kind of lying down and zoning out, putting headphones on and listen to these radio shows is very, very entertaining. And if people haven't explored that whole world of radio adaptations of famous movies,
yeah,
I mean, that was like really, really common. I mean, it's kind of amazing when you listen to Stanwyck or Joan Crawford or somebody doing these radio versions of the shows. It's great. It's like bonus. If you love Barbara Stanwyck, what a bonus to get her in your head, doing a dramatic show, where you can just concentrate on the voice and not worry about the rest of it. So
yeah. And
anyway.
I think too, if people are really into old movies, you should watch like let's go back and listen to the Jack Benny shows. Because one thing, I think the great thing about Jack Benny is he's just as funny today as he was then. And there's not that many comedians that you can say about that. But
Yeah.
also the guest star, well, one, also they would do like the most hilarious film parodies. So sometimes the second half of the show would just be them doing a film parody. And they're one on it's based on the Goodest Story with Bogart.
Dark Passage.
Dark Passage. Their version of Dark Passage is hilarious. And they would have all these great guest stars, though, including Barbara Stanwyck, who was on there many times. And a lot of times the celebrities would be playing themselves, having to deal with Jack Benny, who is also playing a version of himself. And I mean, him and Stanwyck together were hilarious.
That's so
she's
fantastic.
a great comedic actress. So maybe if you only know her from Nora, you might not realize that Stanwyck was also an extremely gifted.
Oh my God,
actress.
she's the greatest. Anyway.
Yeah.
Now you got me thinking I got to go listen to some of these tonight. Anyway.
I know they're great. And, and when I'm doing highly repetitive formatting work, like I can put on a radio show. And the other day I was kind of feeling down, so I put on Jack Benny. So anyway, just to let you know, if you're depressed, Jack Benny is like the best thing to listen to.
Perfect. All right, you go.
Okay, so and this is from our friend James in Minneapolis. I recently saw Edgar G. Ulmer's 1934 film, The Black Cat, which I liked a lot. It's not a noir, but I enjoyed the movie enough that I spent some time reading up on its screenwriter, Peter Rurik, who also wrote under the name Paul Kane. It seems this person wrote a hard-boiled novel of some repute, fast one, and some movies that sound vaguely noirish, 12 Crowded Hours and Grand Central Murder. Are you familiar with his work? Would you recommend it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Fast One is actually a very, very famous hard-boiled novel. A lot of people claim it's the original hard-boiled novel, and he did write in a style that was almost it was already kind of a parody of itself. It's so tough, I have a book right around here of his short stories called Seven Slayers. I don't have it at hand, but yes, I recommend that. The other Kane, I mean, James M. Cain is the much more famous one, but Paul Kane was actually, I think, first. So yeah, and Grand Central Murders is pretty good. I'm not actually sure whatever became of him or how prolific film writing career was, but the fiction, if you're into hard-boiled fiction, you must read Paul Kane's Fast One.
And The Black Cat is a great film.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Very creepy. I like that movie.
It's extremely upsetting.
It is a very upsetting movie, yeah.
Because I think people tend to think of the horror films from the past as, but I mean, because there's the psychological stuff that goes on The Black Cat. It's extremely unpleasant.
Indeed. Is it my turn?
Your turn.
Kathleen from Chicago asks, what are some good noirs directed by women? I'm going to assume that Kathleen is talking about like recent films, since there aren't really that many. The Hitchhiker, Lupino's The Hitchhiker, is the only one from the classic era in Hollywood that was directed by a woman. I've spoken before of Edith Karlmar's Death as a Caress that was made in Norway in 1949. But then I think you have to really skip ahead. I mean, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now, but
well, Maggie Greenwald's The Kill Off, based on the Jim Thompson novel.
Yeah,
that's a great film.
Yeah, I enjoyed that very much. That came right in that peak Thompson Renaissance, where After Dark, My Sweet, and The Grifters, and God, there were other ones as well, both European and American. Lynn Ramsey is doing stuff these days that's very noir. The one I just saw recently the one that she did with Joaquin Phoenix. I think it's called I Was Never There.
Yeah, I need to watch that because yeah, that's been on my queue forever. I need to watch that.
Yeah,
And was she the one that did what was it, Morgan Calver? Did she
I
direct
I'm
that
I'm not
with
sure. I think she also did the one with Tilda Swinton about we need to talk about Kevin.
yeah, she did.
I think that was Lynn Ramsey as well. And I believe she's Scottish, and but she totally gravitates towards noir material. I'm embarrassed to say that I'm kind of drawing a blank on other ones that I know they're out there. And I oh well one that I really enjoyed that came out a few years ago that I thought was a bit ahead of the not a bit was way ahead of the curve was a movie called The Dead Girl, uh, by an actress turned director named Karen Moncrief, and it was a really interesting film about a murder of a young woman told in through the eyes of various people who came in contact with her,
Yeah,
like her best friend, her mother, then the killer, and then the killer's wife.
yeah,
And it was all very, female centric.
yeah,
All the I think there were five characters who had their own chapters in the story, kind of explaining how this woman came to be a murder victim. And it was I thought it was a terrific movie that got absolutely no exposure. Nobody talked about it. Some really good actresses in it. Toni Collette is in it. I think Mary Steenburgen is in it. I'm drawing a blank on everybody, but it was really good because it was, and I don't think it inspired me when I did my film with Marcia Hunt, the Grand Inquisitor. It sort of had the same approach. Like it's a serial killer thing, but it's really from the female perspective. Um, like having to deal with that kind of psychotic male energy. So that was a good movie, and I for a while I wanted to maybe show it at some noir festivals just to try to get it some further attention. And I think it came out, I'm going to say like 2008 or something. So it was way ahead of the curve, which we're seeing now a lot more uh, noir style stories with female
hmm,
protagonists, but in many cases they're just gender flips, where there's
yeah,
nothing specifically. It's not saying something about the woman's role in society as much as it's just taking a story and looking at it from the female, putting a woman in a role that traditionally would have been a man back in the day. But anyway, Kathleen, I wish I could have done better for you, but if I steer anybody to the Dead Girl and they enjoy it, then that was a good question to ask. Yeah.
okay. My question to, excuse me, my question to Eddie is, do you regard the 1970 film Joe as a neo-noir? In
Hmm.
1970, when I was a young GI stationed in Monterey, California, I visited San Francisco one weekend. At a movie theater there, I saw Joe, starring Peter Boyle as a working class bigot and a gorgeous young Susan Sarandon. The venom and profanity spewing from Boyle's mouth was outrageous now and then. I admit there are no voiceovers or femme fatales, but there is a crime. Therefore, I might classify Joe as a neo-noir, especially once the highly explosive Vietnam era class, culture, and politic aspects are stripped away. The story that remains is one of a manipulated schmo who tragically goes too far. Tom C.
Um, Interesting question. I had never thought of Joe as a. I haven't thought about Joe in a long time. I definitely remember when that movie came out. Um, it's interesting. I don't actually. It's been so long since I've seen that movie that I can't really address this properly. I believe that was a John Avildsen directed film. Prior to Rocky and you know the stuff that he was more famous for. Um, but I wonder when he says, if you strip away all this other stuff, is it a noir? Um, I don't know if you can do that because I feel in some respects that's why that movie got made. It got made so that it could be a story about a working class, you know, guy being um, beset with all of these issues that were of the time, right? And he didn't fit in, and he has this enraged reaction to it all. Um, can you actually strip that stuff away and say, well, yeah, and at its heart, it's a crime story. It's the things that make the guy commit the crime that are what the movie is about, I guess. So anyway, I'm not sure. I had never seen or heard of Joe being referred to as a neo noir before. I guess it's kind of like it reminds me of the film later that was made later with Michael Douglas, Falling
Mhm.
Down. I you know, same kind of thing. It's of its time, and yeah, it's a guy who commits a violent act because he's driven by all these pressures, and um, I don't know. I don't know that there is no way to answer it, you know.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting take on the film, and it reminds me that I should go back and look at that and see if it holds up at all.
Yeah.
You know, because I noticed that Tom, when he talked about this, he didn't say he recently revisited it. He said he saw it when 1970
Yeah.
when he was a young GI stationed in Monterey. I wonder if this film, 42 years later, 43 years later would hold up,
Yeah.
or if you just go, oh my God, that was so blatant what they were trying to do there. Who knows? So, well, and now another movie to watch. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think this is our last one from Jonathan in Pittsburgh, PA. This is kind of a long one.
It is a
So
long one.
let's see. But it's very nice. Jonathan has nice things to say here. So uh, I was fortunate enough to go to Noir City, DC for the opening weekend. It was even more fun than I'd hoped. Thank you for, okay, now it's embarrassing. Thank you for being such a terrific host and for putting up with guys, perhaps like myself, who want just one more picture. I'm writing this because I want to encourage other noiristas. Do what you can to get to a noir city near you. There's nothing like seeing these movies on the big screen in a beautiful theater and getting to meet like minded noir nerds. That is very true. Pro tip: bring money for merchandise.
Thank you.
We like that. We like that, Jonathan. And next, you sometimes have people asking about films they want to watch, but are hard or seemingly impossible to find. A couple of suggestions. There are two websites I like that are useful for this: justwatch.com and realgood.com. That's real with two E's. They also have apps. Type in the movie and they'll tell you where it's available to stream, rent, or buy. And they include services like Canopy and Hoopla, which are free to use with a library card.
I
We've
use
been
both those.
okay, good.
Yeah,
Well,
and Real Good is kind of nice to have as a second one because there's stuff I was able to find on Real Good that I couldn't find on Just Watch. So it's usually kind of weird foreign stuff, but it's good to, like, I was surprised. So I wound up like, yeah, so it's good to use both.
That's great. You're endorsing Jonathan's suggestions here.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Um, Finally, I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people like me who are fascinated by the rooms you broadcast from. After all, we can only stare at your two mugs for so long without gazing around the rooms to see what cool stuff we can spot. Others have asked for a tour, and I would love that too. Here are my two big questions. Eddie, how old is your house? My house was built in 1909. It burned down in 1912, leaving only the chimneys and stuff like that. And and then it was rebuilt in that same year in 1912. How old is your house? You have some beautiful, beautiful woodwork. That's not in this room. That's downstairs.
Yes.
And how old is where you live? The building
19,
in which you live?
1916.
1916. Wow. Okay.
Mm.
He is fascinated by that monumental horizontal beam behind you near the ceiling.
Yeah,
It-
that's just like a cornice. So that
yeah.
was just a common thing that was decorative in places. So you can kind of see this part here is where the Murphy bed used to be.
Yeah. In 19. Oh, yeah. I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny. I have one in the next room. I had a
Yeah.
Murphy bed. And in fact, I took off the door, and that was for a while, that was my where I had my desk.
Yeah.
I actually put so I would be in the little alcove that was for the Murphy bed, was where my chair was, and then the desk was in front of it. So I kind of was in a little cockpit, if you will,
Yeah.
when I was working. Many a book were written in that little cockpit. Um, let's see if I can do this. This is kind of ridiculous, but I'm gonna see if I can turn. Let's see if this works. I'm going to pull back into the middle of the room here, and this is probably going to be an utter disaster when I do this, but here's more room, more room. There's my Highway 301 poster with Steve Cochran.
Love that poster.
There you go. There's a doll sitting there. Then, there's the hallway that leads outside, more bookcases. Here comes the ring light. Look out for the ring light. There goes that. Just a lot of books. As you can see, it's all books all the time. That's kind of what we're doing here. Hold on. I got to get the plug off. Okay, coming around again. There's windows. The window was all screwed up there because it had black over it. And now I'm back. Here I am.
Yeah.
Okay. That window had black stuff on it because I have to cover, when I record in here for TCM, I have to cover the windows because it screws up the lighting so completely that I have to have black over the windows. But so two of them have black on them, and then one in the middle does not. Anyway, that's my office. I know you don't really get to, I don't know what else to tell you about this. Above me, above my head right now, you can see a little triptych, a little framed triptych with a little spot of red up there. See that?
Yeah.
Right there? That is a series of drawings done by Michael Lindsay Hogg, who gave this to me, right? Who was if you watch the Beatles Get Back, he was the guy directing the original Get Back. He did those drawings for me when I hosted him at a film noir thing some time ago. There's a picture. That's a picture of Joe DiMaggio next to it. A picture of my wife under it. And then over there on the other side of that doorway is a framed picture of Ida Lupino and John Garfield in Out of the Fog.
Nice.
I don't know what else to tell you. And a lot of this stuff up on the walls are not my awards. They're my father's.
Huh.
So anyway, it's a goofy show and tell moment. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, if I go back here, you can see the start of my DVD collection. That's just one shelf, though. There's a couple others on the other side. And I have two bookshelves in here. They're just my film books. And then now there's built-in shelving on either side of where the Murphy bed is. And since I'm getting rid of some of my my wine glasses and stuff and all this on my cocktail stuff. I have a lot of stuff. I'm pulling more books out here. So, but it's like, I don't know, there's never enough room for books. Or like, I'm just like, hey, like this is enough.
Oh man.
And somehow
that is
I just and then I was like, where the hell am I gonna put these books? And yeah.
I will never stop buying books. I mean, I keep telling myself, just download the ebook version of this stuff so that it's not taking up so much room. But it's very hard for me to do that. I like books too much. This office is just filled. And then through there, that through the doorway is what we call the studio, which is where we actually, I write mostly in this room, but in the studio, we do stuff, we build stuff, um, and that's also filled with, that's where all the DVDs are and
Yeah.
more books. Ay, ay,
Yeah.
ay.
Yeah.
So it's the problem is when you get so many books, then I'll be researching something and it's like, where is the book? I got to find the book. Because if you don't
Yeah.
keep them organized, then it drives you nuts because it's like, I know that damn book is here somewhere, but
Yeah, and I have my books organized, but I've moved a couple times. And I really kind of need to, and at this point, they're kind of more grouped together for space reasons than like, you know what I mean? Because at one point I had everything really well organized. And then, yeah, so I would like to go through my film books again and get them reorganized.
yeah, I know. And it's, because I don't just have film books. I mean, the film books are all over
Yeah.
this side, and then this is all fiction, and then these are all history books down here, and then there's all okay. I think we have brought this in for a landing, Ann.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And we'll be doing another one of these, I guess, fairly soon.
Yeah. Hopefully in 2 weeks. I know we had a bit of a longer break than I wanted, but those things happen. And but hopefully we will be back in 2 weeks. We'll try and do that. And we both have TCM coming up in April. I'm very excited. Yay!
Yep, that should be great fun. I don't know everything that I'm doing yet, but
Yeah.
it should be pretty exciting. Busy
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I think it'll be, I'm just really excited about all the stuff they've announced already. So I'm very excited about the programming this year.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna get out of here because I'm still gonna try to get out and do something today because it
Good
is
for
still
you.
daylight out and it's not raining, so I'm going out.
Good for you. Enjoy
And I
the
want to, and
outdoors.
as usual, thank you, Ann. And as usual, I thank everybody who is watching. It's fantastic, and wherever you are, your tuning in is greatly appreciated.
Very much so. And yeah, so everybody, I don't know, something. Be well.
Bye. Yes. Stay well.
That
We'll
sounds
see you
good.
next time.
We'll see you
Okay.
next time. Bye.